USC. 130,000 residents affected. Streets in darkness. Use flashlights and not candles. Unusual advisory issued. San Francisco, the heart of the U.S. tech empire, descends into darkness. A huge electricity outage paralyzed the U.S. city, dimming the Christmas holiday festivities. 130,000 homes and businesses were plunged into darkness right in the middle of a holiday rush. For several hours, large parts of the West Coast tech hub, which has a population of more than 800,000 people, were plunged into darkness. The outages also left neighborhoods, including the Sunset and Richmond districts, in the dark, along with Haight-Ashbury, Pacific Heights, and the Presidio. No lights, no signals, no power. Public transit stalled. Traffic lights went dead. Packed shopping streets go empty. Businesses shuttered midday. Holiday plans abruptly erased. Many businesses were forced to close for the day at the height of the holiday shopping period. Self-driving ride-hailing service Waymo had paused operation of its vehicles. A city built on technology left navigating the dark the old-fashioned way. The only illumination, headlights slicing through pitch-black roads. A fire at a substation had sparked the outage. According to a report by the San Francisco Standard, the fire department received a call at 2:16 p.m. The fire was, however, completely contained later, with no injuries or structural damage. But the damage was already done. Pacific and Gas and Electric Company, PG&E, confirmed that the blackout affected nearly 30% of its customers in the city.
Hi, I'm Tomer Sarkisian with PG&E. We're here at the Mission substation, and we worked with first responders earlier today to make this area safe. We have crews inside right now working to restore power to our customers. We do expect restorations later this evening, and we're going to keep you updated on that. And we do appreciate everybody's patience as we work to restore power safely and as quickly as possible to all our customers that are impacted.
And then came the warning. Check on neighbors. Keep refrigerators closed. Turn off major appliances. Stay away from space heaters. And above all, save 911 for life-threatening emergencies only. Amid blackouts, San Francisco mayor gave an update and some safety tips.
Have an update from PG&E. We have seen power restored to 90,000 customers. There are still 42,000 customers without power. So that is progress from PG&E. But for those of you that do not have power, we want you to make sure you stay safe. Check on your neighbors. But also, if you have candles on, please put those out, especially as you're heading to bed. We want you to stay safe. I want to say thank you to the team here at the Emergency Operations Center. I want to thank everybody out there, police, fire, park and rec, DPW, our parking control officers that have been at intersections now for hours. I know there's a lot going on out there, but people really stepped up tonight and will overnight as well. So everybody, I know this was a rough day, and we will have more updates in the morning. Stay safe and take care of yourself.
Hey, shalom, shalom. Call halal, YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, RAWCHAA, QADASH. That's giving all praise to the Most High, in the name of His only begotten Son, in the name of the Holy Spirit. Double honors to our teachers, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who taught us His truth and sincerity, peace and salutations. To the hopeful elect scattered abroad, shalom 244,000. And as you're going to see in this video, we're going to cover this whole blackout in San Francisco thing, okay? Which, you know, like I put in the title, it was all just a test run, man. You know, if you know anything about these elites, you know, this is how they get down. You know, they have these situations happen to test out people's reactions, you know, it's for so they can gauge how they ultimately want to bring in, you know, these particular, you know, disasters, man. Okay, and as we get closer to the end of this place, it's going to get worse, and eventually these lights are going to go out. Now, in a thumbnail, you see it says a U.S. tech hub, right? Because you have these data centers that's really taking up a lot of electricity. Okay, these data centers are taking up a lot of electricity for their AI and whatnot, trying to put up this AI infrastructure. And basically what's going to happen as we get close to the end of this place is a lot of these major cities are going to be turned into smart cities. You've been hearing about smart cities, which is going to take a lot of energy to run those smart cities. So smaller cities are not going to get electricity anymore. All right. And they show you in certain movies and shows where basically you'll have America, you know, divided. It's a particular show I'm thinking about right now with the guy from Captain America, Jake. He's in the show, and basically in the show there's like these major cities where you know there's still, you know, a sense of civilization. But and the rest of America, it's like no man's land. It's the wild, wild west. And that's what they ultimately want to do, okay? As we get close to the end of this place, man, they're going to start giving more attention and power to bigger cities, okay, smart cities, and less attention and power to these smaller cities, which is why they want to have everybody quail into these smart cities and be in these, you know, 5x5 prison cells and whatnot. Okay, so we understand that when this happens, and as you see in that clip, you know, the things can get very dangerous, you know, the dark, man. And you see, you know, it was very dark. Okay, besides the car lights and whatnot, it gets very dark, man. So at night, you got the risk of people breaking in your house. And this was just for a few, you know, days, some people hours. But imagine when it's for weeks, months, you know. People's food is going bad. People who are dependent upon, you know, medication that has to be refrigerated is going to be the first ones to go. It's going to get bad, man. And it's our job to sound this alarm and warn our people of the time we're coming into, because you're not going to be comfortable forever here in America, man. All right? That the days of comfort in America is coming to an end. So let me grab this real quick, just showing you the prophecy, okay, of, you know, America being modern-day Egypt. All right? America is modern-day Egypt, and we're coming into a time where we're going to see the same plagues that came upon ancient Egypt come upon America. All right? So let's grab this. This is Exodus chapter 10 and verse 20. It says, "But the Lord Yahawah hardened Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Israel go. And the Lord Yahawah said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt." Okay, so there's going to be a particular darkness, okay, in this place, man. All right, which the lights will go out, and then it's going to get even darker. All right, and the Lord's going to have a spirit in this darkness, okay, of people getting put to death, you know, unalived. It's going to be a lot of that going on, man. It's going to turn into complete chaos here in America. And in this series of videos I'm going to show you is, you know, it was one guy that said it was dystopian, okay, which we're going to grab that word too, dystopian. All right? And that's what you can expect from America, a dystopian society. All it takes is one situation. We always talk about, we always talking about the EMPs, okay, and whatnot, that could, you know, knock out all your electricity and your power, and then even your cars won't work. Okay, so we're coming into a time of, you know, great death, destruction, and turmoil, and a lot of our people are still lost, still confused, don't know what's going on, which I've been hearing for years. I've never been to San Francisco, but I've been hearing for years in different, you know, I remember Dave Chappelle had a comedy skit about how San Francisco was the gayest city in the gayest town in America, the gayest city in America. All right, you got a lot of flamboyance out there. All right, so it's no surprise. All right, this is the word for dystopian. It says dystopian describes an imaged and imagined, often futuristic society that is oppressive, dehumanizing, and miserable. So the future is going to be very miserable for these Babylonians. It says, serving as an opposite of a utopia, a perfect world. Right, so here in America, we're going to have a dystopian society. all right? It says these societies feature extreme control through government, tech, or religion. Now, you seeing this now with this whole tech movement. You know, they're trying to, you know, pretty much bring more control upon the people, you know, with the government, you know. It says loss of freedom, surveillance, which that's another major thing with Palantir. They want to surveil you. Propaganda and constant fear, depicting a cautionary tale about current trends. Think of works like 1984, The Hunger Games, or A Brave New World, which I have that book, okay, which is, it tells you the future of America. Basically, it's going to be a dystopian society where they're going to be bringing hell upon the people. It says, or a brave new world where life is characterized by suffering, oppression, and terror. And that's what you could expect, you know, in these last days of America. It says this dystopian, relating to or denoting an imagined state or society where there is great suffering or injustice. And that's what these elites is coming to bring. Great suffering and injustice. So get ready to be uncomfortable. Get ready to catch hell. Get ready for all these things in these last days, man. All right. And then let me play some more of this real quick. Like I said, I got a few clips I want to play. And the Lord, when it's edifying to the hopeful elect, but it's just to paint the picture of the time we're coming into. Because like I said, this was just a test run. Pretty soon you're going to have a lot of these cities get shut down with no power. And it's going to be for weeks, if not months. Okay. And it's going to be complete Mad Max out here. You know, once there's no food in these cities, in these stores, once, you know, there's no electricity, there's no power, lawlessness kicks in, man. Okay, and it's everybody for themselves. There's a quote: when people have nothing to lose, they lose it. And these Americans, like in the movie with the Joker, he said these civilized people, they're going to eat each other. Okay, he said I'm not crazy. I'm just ahead of the curve. So we're ahead of the curve. We already see what's coming. They call us crazy now for preaching what we preach and believing what we believe in, but we're not crazy. We're just ahead of the curve. We already see where this is going. While most of the world is, you know, in that holiday spirit, which they're going to show you how they pretty much had to cancel, you know, their holiday shopping and whatnot. You know, so it's, hey, we in some serious times. And if you're not paying attention, if you're not on point, you know, in the spirit, you will be taken. Let's play this.
Go for most of the day.
Look at this guy.
Oh, the power has been out in San Francisco for most of the day, and the Waymos have no idea what to do because the streetlights aren't working. This one's just sitting in the crosswalk.
What I told you, man. All right, what I told you. I said San Francisco is a flamboyant city of moles. All right, and the first guy to hop on the screen just looks and sounds like a complete, you know, flamboyant. It's no surprise. It says this is 777. It's chaos. Massive power blackout leaves San Francisco in darkness. Waymo vehicles glitch out. Which these Waymo vehicles, we just started recently seeing them down here in Tampa. And I did a video on these vehicles, man. You know, these Waymo vehicles, these self-driving vehicles. You know, they had them in California. You saw them during the protest out there and whatnot. People was trashing them. They got them in Atlanta and like a lot of major cities. But we just recently got them out here in Tampa. Okay, and it just goes to show you that the future is, you know, it's going to be automated, all right? But in a chaos, in a time of, you know, distraught, this technology is not going to be any help. In fact, it's going to be a hindrance. Like you ever seen the movie Leave the World Behind? I want to grab the clip, but I'm not going to grab it for copyright purposes. But you remember that movie Leave the World Behind? Basically what happened was you had those Tesla electric vehicles that were pretty much went mayhem and started crashing into each other, you know? So this is the time we're coming into.
Oh, the power has been out in San Francisco for most of the day, and the Waymos have no idea what to do because the streetlights aren't working. This one's just sitting in the crosswalk, and these three are just sitting here with their lights blinking.
And as you can see right there, things are getting chaotic in San Francisco. This massive outage knocking out power to 130,000 homes and businesses across the area. 1/3 of the city left in darkness, as you can see in the images. And a lot of people going to social media complaining about this. As you just witnessed the guy talking about the Waymo vehicles, they're shut down in the city. This is causing gridlock in many different areas. It's bad enough when the lights go out, but most of the time people can take turns going at a light like they're supposed to. When it comes to the Waymo vehicles, they're stopped dead in their tracks. Because the lights are out, they don't know what to do or where to go. Elon Musk tried to chime in and say that his vehicles were not affected by this. Now, this outage, they said, was caused by a fire that broke out inside a Pacific Gas and Electric, or PG&E substation, and that was on 8th and Mission Streets. So just one substation getting taken out can cause this big of a problem and an issue. Again, people upset about this, businesses affected. They're saying that it's causing significant disruptions. And especially here in terms of transit, citywide, they're urging residents to avoid non-essential travel and to treat downtown traffic signals as four-way stops. But again, with these Waymos, they're not adhering to that. Just one of the glitches here in the Matrix, when the lights go out, what's going to happen? It reminds me of the Obama movie where all the electric vehicles were all driving into one big pile. I guess maybe that's next. We haven't seen it yet, but yeah.
And a lot of things that happened in that movie has already started happening. Like, you remember when the planes was falling out of the sky like crazy? So imagine a day where there is an EMP attack, man. Where basically it's an electric magnetic pulse where something can happen, whether it's a missile detonated over America or whatever, where basically all these electronics get fried. You got, probably 1,000 to 2,000 planes in the sky at any given time over America. And in a situation where the electricity gets fried, you're gonna have planes falling out of the sky. You're gonna have trains derailing. You're gonna have car crashes, okay? Ships, that's just gonna be, coming upon the shore. You've seen that in that Obama, film, Leave the World Behind. So what are they telling you? Your former president was behind the making of that movie. What does he know? He knows that this is coming. All right. And why do they know? How do they know? Because this is all according to their plan. All right. To bring chaos. Like I went into it earlier, and a lot of people don't watch them videos concerning the MOTB because people, they just want to be rocked to sleep. But it's our job to continue to warn you. But in that show Fallout, in the show Fallout, they showed you how basically it was the own government who had a huge part in bringing the destruction upon America, man. All right. So, these elites and the so-called powers that be, they know what they're doing. All right. They're all, have a hand in this. And what it's going to bring is a lot of death and destruction for you everyday Babylonians. All right. Let me grab this real quick, showing you that America is modern day Egypt. All right. Revelation chapter 11 and verse 8, it says, "And their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of the great city, which is now America." It says, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. So America is now spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. And what was happening in Sodom and Gomorrah? A bunch of Moism. And that's what goes on in San Francisco, okay, one of the gayest cities in America. But also, this is modern day Egypt, okay? And here's nothing but, the same thing all over again. This is why to particular cities, you have the pyramids, you got the Sphinx and, Las Vegas and whatnot, showing you that same spirit and that same vibration is here in America. So those same plagues that came against ancient Egypt is going to come across, modern day Egypt, all right, which is going to cause a lot of people to get taken, and there's death and destruction that's coming.
Heads up for what's going on here with this. Join me for the live streams where I talk about the secret.
So you seen that, right? Let's see if we can get another one. All right, because we're seeing these things play out on the earth. All right, and it shows you that what's coming is going to be worse. All right, this is just like priming. Just lock in for the ad. Hey, it's just going to get worse in these last days, man. All right, this is why we tell you to repent and seek Yahawah Shemi Shah, he may be found, because the time is coming where it's going to get very, very bad. And the only help you're going to get is from Yahawah Shemi Shah. And if not Yahawah Shemi Shah, there will be no help.
Blanketing the city, it
Look
was
at that.
mild.
Look at that. Besides all those car lights, it's just pure darkness. Okay? And when you get a situation like that, you have crime that amps up. You got people that's going to be taking advantage of people, kicking in doors. All right? You're going to have robbings, grapings. I remember the brother Altazwam in the camp, we down here, we had a hurricane last year. And there's an app called the Next Door app where it tells you everything that's going on in your neighborhood. And basically, it was a dude who made a post, somebody who made a post, and they said how somebody was trying to, it was pitch black. They didn't have electricity for days, if not like a week. But he said how in the middle of the night somebody was trying to they were twisting their doorknob, basically trying to break in your house. So the time we coming into it, and I remember it was a documentary like that. I gotta find it. Lord will not can find it. But it was basically a documentary that was going into, and it was showing you, what to expect if the lights go out. In the middle of the night, you sleeping, and all of a sudden you hear glass breaking, somebody breaking in your house. You going out there with your, 380, and hoping for the best. But people are going to get very desperate. People are going to get very violent in these last days, man. Okay. Another thing they said was about the candles. Don't go to sleep, with your candles lit. You're gonna have a lot of house fires and stuff. So yeah, man. These Americans, they've been living in comfort, so they're not used to any type of uncomfortability, man. Okay, especially for a long duration of time. All right. I remember the other day I was sleeping. I think this was actually a day before camp. I was sleeping and I happened to be I was like half awake, half asleep, and I heard like a noise. I think that was in my dream, but then I opened my eyes and the lights had went off. I was basically like half awake, half asleep, and I thought I was dreaming the lights went out, but the lights actually went out. And I got up and I walked outside and I seen all my neighbors outside, and that's when I knew, okay, it ain't just me, okay, because I knew I knew I paid the bill. It ain't just me. So you imagine, how this affects everybody. And the first thing people do is they step outside, they're looking around, seeing if everybody's going through the same thing. You can expect more of this in these last days, bro. All right, let's go over here, though. This is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 6, and verse 22. It says, "And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty," which is what that means. A lot of looting is going to start. Like Trump said, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. It's going to get violent, bro. People, feel like they can get away with stealing something. They're gonna do it. All right, they're gonna start looting these stores. So within hours, the food is gonna be completely, wiped out of these stores. All right. "And the trumpet shall give a sound, which when every man heareth, they shall be suddenly afraid." You're gonna have all those alarms and sirens going off. People, are gonna be, afraid. It's gonna be pandemonium. Shalom Yahawah Shemi Shah. This is what to expect in these last days. Okay, and it's our job to warn you ahead of time. Like the watchman will be upon the watchtower and they'll be ringing the bell, alarming you of the danger that's coming. That's what we're doing. That's our job. That's what the Lord called us to do. Okay, it says, "At that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies." You're going to have people that was longtime friends, neighbors, barbecues and, popping fireworks together on these holidays. They're going to be breaking in each other's houses and at each other's throats. Okay, taking food, whatever they can find, medicine, liquor, or your wife, your daughters, It says, "At that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies, and the earth shall stand in fear with those that dwell therein. The springs of the fountain shall stand still, and in 3 hours they shall not run," which is symbolic for what? This water, which, the water system is basically powered by the electricity system. So if you go long enough without power, then the water stops working as well. So you're going to have a complete situation where there is no power and there is no running water, okay? And you can imagine what that's going to be like if it continues on for weeks, if not months. People going to start smelling. It's going to be hot, you know. If this happens in the dead of winter, a lot of people are going to freeze to death. They're not going to be able to warm their houses up. You know, you got people that's going to be frozen to death, you know, in their own homes, okay? Or you have it where you have, you know, if it's hot, people are going to have heat strokes. People are going to be hot. Another thing, too, that when the lights go out, people try to, you know, they turn on their cars in the garage and whatnot, and they trying to power up their devices, and then eventually they get carbon monoxide poisoning from all the, you know, fumes from the car. There's a lot of different ways to die, okay? Quite frankly, there's going to be a lot of different ways to perish, and that's going to be the judgment of YAHAWASHI YAHAWASHI. He's going to send out them death angels in a high number, all right? And it's going to run through these cities and just start snatching souls, okay? It says, verse 25, whosoever remaineth from all these that I have told thee shall escape and see my salvation and the end of your world. So we're about to witness the end of this world as we know it, okay? The end of America as we know it. This is the time that we're in, okay? And the Lord, you know, commanded us to warn our people of these times, all right? These times that we're coming into, where it's going to be very evident that the Lord YAHAWASHI YAHAWASHI is bringing these judgments. You're going to know, okay? You're going to know. It's going to be not a doubt in your mind, you know, where this judgment is coming from, all right? And that's why we are here to warn you. We telling you, even if these videos don't get no views now, they will later, okay? It's because people they're going to want answers. Let's grab that too, okay? They shall, let me see, what's that, Amos? Yep. And you can imagine too, when this happens, you're not going to be able to get, you know, this information so freely as you're getting it today, man. It says, Amos chapter 8, verse 11, behold, the days come, saith the Lord YAHAWASHI YAHAWASHI, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of YAHAWASHI YAHAWASHI. And that's first, because there will be a famine of bread and water as well. It's going to be a lack of food out here, a lack of water, okay, a lack of resources. But first, it's going to be a famine of hearing his word. They're going to find a way to get us off the streets, to get us off these platforms, okay, so you can't get these warnings, all right? And when that time does come, man, this is why you got to get it now. You know, you got to get it while it's hot, because pretty soon we ain't going to be able to go out there and prophesy, you know, and preach, you know, until you or be on these platforms doing these videos. You know, and you got brothers doing sometimes 2-3 videos a day. I myself, shit, I might do, you know, 3 videos in a day, but I just don't post them all in one day because I don't want to overload, you know, the feed. I got videos from last week I still haven't posted yet. What's that? That's a constant flow of information going out from the heavens, because it's the Lord that gives us the inspiration to do these videos, and that's a constant flow of information and warnings, you know, at the time we're coming into. There's going to come a day where you're not going to get that anymore, okay? It says, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of YAHAWASHI YAHAWASHI. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of YAHAWASHI YAHAWASHI, and shall not find it. People you see, that's where you're going to want. See, you know, and they say that, you know, you never know you need something, you know, or you could never find something whenever you're looking for it, you know. But if you're not looking for it, it's in your face. But the moment you start looking for it, now you can't find it. And that's what's going to happen. People are going to start looking for answers, and they're not going to have answers. And that's going to freak people out. Because what people are afraid of the most is what they don't know. Okay, if they don't know how their next meal is coming, people lose it, you know. If they don't know when the lights are turning back on, people are going to lose it. It says, in that day shall the fair virgins and the young men faint for thirst, which is what of these living waters, okay? Because people going, like I said, people going to want answers. They want to know why is this happening, what's going on, when is everything coming back on, And in the back of their minds, that scary place in the back of their minds when they realize it's not coming back on, that's what fear sets in. That's when things get violent. That's when people start to resort to things they wouldn't usually do. That's when your average everyday American becomes a complete criminal, okay? You know, a monster. And they're going to start preying upon each other, okay? And the first ones that really be affected by this is going to be the weak, you know, women and children, the elderly, sick, all right? You're going to be preyed upon, all right? So let's play this.
Tonight, the lights slowly coming back on in San Francisco, where instead of the typical fog blanketing the city, it was miles of darkness.
Looks dystopian, like a Hollywood movie.
A massive
Like a
power
Hollywood
outage
movie, you
Saturday.
heard that? I brought out that word dystopian, like a Hollywood movie. It's very dystopian, like a Hollywood movie. Yeah, except it ain't gonna be no cut. It ain't gonna be no action cut. No, it's gonna be just straight action. All right. It's gonna be real. Okay, it's not gonna be a movie that you can turn off, you know, and wait for the credits to come. No, it's gonna be full blown action. You in the movie, okay, and it's gonna be the climax of the movie. You know, the worst time in history. We're coming into the worst time in history, man. And a lot of people here in America are about to lose their lives. They have no idea. While they're out Christmas shopping and doing whatever they're doing, they have no idea that within the next couple of months or to a year, you're gonna perish. You know, whether it be from these different plagues or the ultimate plague, which is the thermonuclear destruction. All right.
San Francisco, where instead of the typical fog blanketing the city, it was miles of darkness.
Looks dystopian, like a Hollywood movie.
A massive power outage Saturday left some 130,000 PG&E customers, about 30% of their users across the city, without power for hours.
Look at this. Look at that, man. All you see is darkness and shadows. And another thing, too, I was thinking about is that it's so crazy how you have these power companies where it's basically a monopoly. Like down here in Tampa, we have something called TECO, Tampa Electric Company, something. Basically, there's only one electric company, okay? So you can't go to another company or any of that. It's just basically you're restricted to one company. So if that one company goes out, everything goes out. Even down here, they basically talking about suing the electric company for price gouging, which, you know, good luck with that. They're signing petitions to sue, you know, the electric company for price gouging. But basically, you're subject to one particular power company, you know. So if that company goes out, that's it. There is no more power, you know.
This map showing just how widespread the outage spanned.
We're like, oh my God, and when we find out later and later, most of the things that we planned were canceled.
The blackout forcing restaurants and businesses to close on one of the busiest holiday shopping weekends of the year.
Like, San Francisco, are you okay?
On the streets, chaos and congestion. Videos show multiple Waymo self-driving cars stalling at dark intersections.
The Waymos are stuck.
Unclear how to navigate the down traffic lights. Waymo temporarily suspending its operations, saying we are focused on keeping our riders safe and ensuring emergency personnel have the clear access they need to do their work. The fire department says at least some of the outages were because of a fire that broke out inside this PG&E substation.
I can say that this is a contributing factor to the lights out in the area, stop lights and lights out in the businesses.
But the full cause still under investigation. PG&E saying the damage from the fire is extensive and that the repairs and safe restoration will be complex, but not yet explaining how they believe this happened.
Yeah, who started the fire?
Christmas cheer.
Who started the fire, man? Oh, it was a fire. Okay, who started the fire? How did the fire happen? They're not gonna tell you that. Because like I said, this is all according to their plans. You know, order out of chaos. They cause the chaos to bring in the order. And like I said, this is just a test run. Same thing with the food stamps a couple of, months ago. Basically, they cut off the food stamps. Oh my God, we have no more funds for the food stamps. People were talking about they're gonna start robbing and looting and stuff. You know, so they do these things to gauge the people's reactions. So when they ultimately do it for good, and just flip, when they flip that switch, That's it, you know? So these are just test runs, all right? Imagine, you know, more major cities, you know, just losing power all at once. You know, you got Dallas, you got New York, you know, New Jersey, these major cities, man. Okay, that just lose power, you know, indefinitely. You know, people are gonna be in that community. Oh yeah, taking care of, helping the community, shit for a few hours, and after that, it's gonna be Mad Max. Everybody for themselves. Okay, that's the time you're coming into, bro. Okay, and it's our job to warn you and let you know what's coming down the pipe. All right. Look at that, closed power outage. That's another thing too. When there's no power, a lot of these businesses close their doors and shut down. And all right, this is 11 hours ago. It says about 11,000 SFPGE customers still without power. That was 11 hours ago. So what today? People still without power. Let's grab this real quick though. This is Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 17, and verse 1. It says, "For great are thy judgments and cannot be expressed. Therefore, unnurtured souls have erred." If you're not being nurtured in the spirit of YAHAWASHI, you about to err. You know, you about to catch all kind of hell. You about to feel the pain. "For when unrighteous men thought to oppress the holy nation," which just happened in ancient Egypt, you had unrighteous men thinking that they can oppress the holy nation, which is the Israelites. It says, "They being shut up in their houses, the prisoners of darkness." And what happened? This is when that darkness was, you know, stretched out over Egypt, you know, which they said this in last night. Shalom, last night, or you know, this happened Saturday. They were telling people to stay in your homes, avoid traveling, you know, because you're gonna get stuck in the gridlock, and before you know it, you know, somebody smashing your car window to take your cell phone, you know, to take your money. It says, "For when unrighteous men thought to oppress the holy nation, they being shut up in their houses, the prisoners of darkness." So you could be a prisoner to darkness, man. Okay? If you can't see, you know how you walk to your house and it's pitch black, you know, you kind of know your house, you know, but if you know, if it's so dark and you in an unknown place, you know, you don't want to move too much because you don't want to trip and fall over something. You know, it says, "And fettered with the bonds of a long night," which, as they say, time flies when you're having fun. So what does it do when you're not having fun? It takes forever. You know, every minute feels like an hour. It says, "Being horribly astonished and troubled with strange apparitions." So what happened? They was not only in darkness, but they were seeing stuff. You know, which is strange apparitions, like a, you know, so-called ghost. It's like you seeing ghostly figures, you know, which is spirits. You're gonna be seeing shit, you know. Your eyes gonna be playing tricks on you. And in certain cases, they're not gonna be playing. It's gonna be real deal demons, you know, terrorizing people in the darkness. Imagine you in the dark and you feel something grab you, you know. That's terrifying, bro. You know, you in the dark and you hearing stuff. All right. It says, "For neither might the corner that held them keep them from fear." I mean, you know, kept up in a corner, you know, with your head in your lap, okay, trembling, crying. You got grown ass people that still are scared of the dark. Grown ass people that still scared of the dark, man. Jake, you know, they come to my house, bro. The lights always off. I'm always, you know, lights always off, and I might have the windows open, but hey, man, I always tell them, Tico is not your friend. That light bill is no joke, so the light's gonna be off. But you got people that's not used to being in the dark. I go to certain people's house and they got every light on in the house. I'm like, damn, y'all light bill must be crazy. But because you got people that's literally scared of the dark. They don't like being in the dark. They can't take the darkness. So what happens when you have no choice but to be in the dark? People gonna lose their minds. They're not gonna be able to think straight. They're gonna bug out. It says, "For neither might the corner that held them keep them from fear, but noises as of waters falling down sounded about them, and sad visions appeared unto them with heavy countenances." So they were seeing shit, bro. Okay? They were seeing stuff. This is the time we're coming into it here in America. This is going to happen here in America. It says, no power of the fire might give them light. So they had actual, you know, fire that was lit, but they still couldn't see. This is how thick this darkness was. Okay? Which there was a spirit in that darkness that made it so thick where you couldn't even see a fire. You know, if you had a candle lit in front of your face, you couldn't see the fire. That's terrifying. That showed you that it was a plague from BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI. It was supernatural. It wasn't just an ordinary darkness. It was supernatural. And that's coming to America, you know. It may happen where the lights cut off, you know, and then all of a sudden, 2-3 days in, you know, a thick darkness, just like a thick dark cloud just comes over your particular city. And even if you have, you know, lights in your car or whatever, you know, a flashlight, it's not going to be able to do you no justice. It says, no power of the fire might give them light, neither could the bright flames of the stars endure to lighten that horrible night. You see? Neither could the bright flames of the stars endure to lighten that horrible night. So you're not going to even be able to see the stars and the moon. It's going to be pitch black. You know? And if this is a plague that came upon ancient Egypt, it's going to come upon modern Egypt. All right? These same plagues and worse. It says, only there appeared unto them a fire kindled of itself, very dreadful, for being much terrified. People are going to be terrified, okay? For being much terrified, they thought the things which they saw to be worse than the sight they saw not. As for the illusion of art magic, look at this. They thought the things they saw to be worse than the things they saw not. So they were seeing stuff, but they were more terrified about what they couldn't see. Okay, they was hearing stuff. You could imagine, you know, them hearing stuff and, you know, animals growling and stuff. It was, you know, hey, that's a terrifying thing. Okay, so basically, the Lord is about to make you Americans very uncomfortable. It says, for as for the illusions of art magic, they were put down, and their vaunting and wisdom was reproved with disgrace. Right? You ain't gonna be able to do any of your sorceries and magic to help you, you know. For they that promised to drive away terrors and troubles from a sick soul were sick themselves of fear, worthy to be laughed at. This is how you know this is YAHAWASHI, because people who are supposed to be the ones to comfort others were, you know, afraid. It says, for though no terrible thing did fear them, yet being scared with beasts that passed by and hissing of serpents. So they was hearing stuff. And, you know, these might have been actual animals that they were hearing passing by and serpents hissing. And then again, it might have just been in their own mind. You know, the Lord will put you in an alternate reality where you hearing shit that's not even there. You know, and that's terrifying. I always mention the movie that the brothers put me on. It's called Smile. And they just came out with a part 2 recently, man. But in that movie, they showed you how basically it was a particular spirit that came upon people. And in the end of the second movie, they you know, the spirit had, you know, what was revealed. And it was a ghoulish looking creature, you know. But basically, it was a spirit that when somebody got possessed by the spirit, they would kill themselves smiling. And they wanted to do it in front of an audience, in front of somebody else. And whoever seen that person kill themselves while they were smiling with this horrific smile on their face, you know, that demon would jump on them, you know. So it's you got to watch that movie. It's a very, very spiritual movie. But basically in that movie, there was a scene in the second one, because, well, the whole series, but in the second one especially, the people who had that demon on them, they were seeing things that weren't there. They were seeing people smiling that wasn't smiling, you know? It was like their minds was playing tricks on them. But there was a scene in that movie where basically this woman, it was a whole scene where she was running and, you know, she ended up at this whole different place, and she was having this whole experience that wasn't even real. It was all in her mind. It was all in her mind. And the very place that she was trying to avoid going to, when she came to out of this vision that she was suffering from the spirit, she was right there where she did, the last place that she wanted to be. And basically, not to give too much of the story away, she was like a singer, and she had a concert, and a demon wanted her to go play in this concert so she can, you know, unalive herself in front of millions of people watching, you know, on, you know, the TV and in the crowd. And basically, when that spirit made her unalive herself in front of all them people, basically that spirit jumped on all those people. So that, you know, there has to be a part 3 coming. That's gonna be terrifying. But like I said, go watch that movie. I'm gonna watch it again because it shows you like how these spirits work, man. All right, and how they use people, you know, to bring, you know, hell upon others. Okay, so hey, bro, we in that time. But reading on, it says, they died for fear. People was dying of fear, you know, having heart attacks, denying that they saw the air, which could, look at that, that's spiritual, you know. Imagine that city. See all the lights, you know. That's another thing too, all these Christmas lights. It wasn't no Christmas lights, you know, in San Francisco for a few days, you know. It pretty much took away the whole Christmas spirit. People were out shopping for Christmas, and next thing you know, the store shut down and it's pitch black, you know. The Christmas music stopped. Oh, a happy Merry Christmas. You know, the music stopped. And then people started looting. You hear babies crying. You know? This is going to be an interesting time, man. All right? We are in a very interesting time, to say the least. It's a lot. Oh, man, I'm just going to happen. Let's bring it back.
Stop lights and lights out in the businesses.
But
yep. So it says, they died for fear, denying that they saw the air which could of no side be avoided. For wickedness condemned by her own witness is very timorous, and being pressed with conscience always forecasteth grievous things. You know, and that's the crazy thing about too, you know, your own mind can start, you know, because you know how you start having these bad thoughts, you know, the worst things, you know. For fear is nothing else but a betraying of a succors which reason offereth, and the explanation from within being less counteth the ignorance more than the cause which bringeth the torment. Right, so the thought of what you don't know, okay, is more terrifying than what you do know. That's why I said people fear what they don't know. If they don't know when the lights come back on, they don't know when, you know, they start having anxiety and panic attacks and freaking out, you know, cause people to act very irrational. It says, and that brings torment. But they sleeping the same sleep that night, which was indeed intolerable, and which came upon them out of the bottoms of inevitable hell, were partly vexed with monstrous apparitions. So imagine the Lord not only cut off the lights, but now he got you seeing demons, monstrous demons just appearing. You know, you in a dark room, but then there's a dark figure in the corner of your room, you know, just, you know, with red eyes, just, you just hearing shit. You, oh my God, you terrified. You can't move. You know how they say you get goosebumps in your the hairs on your arms stick up, the hairs on the back of your neck stick up. You know, you bro, we coming into them times, and it's gonna be here in America, okay? Okay, the place where you've been most comfortable, you felt most secure. This is they thought this place was paved with gold streets, man. It says, were partly vexed with monstrous apparitions, and partly fainted, their heart failing them for a sudden fear and not looked for came upon them. People gonna be catching hell, bro. Okay. catching all kind of hell, man. So that's why we tell you to repent, seek Yahawah BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI, to get right with the Lord, because the time we're coming into, it's going to get very, very bad out here. All right? It's going to get very, very bad, man. There's another precept I wanted to get. I thought I was going to be in here. I don't think it was. It says, yeah, I'll read some more. Okay, let's jump down. No, let's keep reading. It says, verse 16. It says, so then, whosoever there fell down was straightly kept, shut up in a prison without iron bars. And that's the thing, you know. You can be within the prison of your own mind. You know, your own mind can become a prison if you can't see anything. You know, you're in darkness. You're stuck. You can't move. For whether he be husbandman or a shepherd or a laborer in the field, he was overtaken and endured that necessity which could not be avoided, for they were all bound with one chain of darkness. So everybody was catching this hell. Scripture says, but the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. It says, or a terrible sound of stones cast down. I think that's what I'm looking for. It says, or a running that could not be seen of skipping beasts, or a roaring voice of most savage wild beasts, or a rebounding echo from the hollow mountains. These things made them to swoon in for fear. Yeah, they was hearing shit. Okay, terrified. For the whole world shined with clear light, and none were hindered in their labor. Over them only was spread in heavy night, and an image of that darkness which could afterward receive them, but yet were they unto themselves more grievous than the darkness. Ooh. So yeah, man. And the darkness is going to be the least of your worries. Let's grab this to had a light in their dwellings. Because when this comes upon these Babylonians, the Lord's going to be with his, his men. Okay. And in return, the women and the children. This is why the scripture says 7 women shall take hold of one man, because the Lord's going to be with his men. Okay. But a lot of these people out here in America, they're going to be left out there, stuck, confused. And if you're in the spirit of Christmas and you got a Christmas tree in your house, then you're going to be one of them people, I haven't had a Christmas tree in my house for over 10 years, bro. Longer than that, really, because I was never really in that holiday spirit before I came into the truth. I was never in that holiday spirit. I remember when I was younger, my family would leave to go to, these little, holiday events and family gatherings, and I would stay home. I would be home chilling in the dark somewhere, or at a friend's house. But I was never really into that shit, and I never understood why. I remember just being at home, looking out the window while my family would leave. I would like go hide somewhere or leave so that when they left, they didn't ask me to go with them, because I was never in that holiday spirit, and I never understood why. But now I understand why, because it's wicked. Okay. Exodus chapter 10, verse 20. But the Lord Yahawah hardened Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Israel go. And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out thine hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. Meaning you can feel this darkness. That's how, how dark it was. It's like something was gripping you. It says, and Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. So you imagine them 3 days felt like 3 weeks, but it was all over the land of Egypt, which America's modern day Egypt. Okay. They saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days. Meaning they wasn't even moving. They was stuck, trembling in fear for 3 days. Somewhere in a corner, shaking, terrified. All right. But so can you imagine too, like that means that there is no sunlight. There is none of that. There was a thick darkness that was stretched out over the land of Egypt. So for 3 days, you saw no light at all. Okay, no sunlight, no nothing. And they've done these studies too, bro. When you put people in darkness for a number of days, certain effects start to happen. Their bodies start to adapt to the dark and terrifying ways, man. It takes a mental toll on these individuals that's in that darkness like that, man. There was a study about that. There was a guy who did a study where he pretty much took some prisoners and he had them in darkness for a period of time. And I believe eventually they all died or something like that. But, you know, they started, you know, doing a lot of weird stuff. You know, he was basically experimenting and recording it. And, you know, it was just all bad, bro. It says, they saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days, but all the children of Israel, this starts with the elect, had light in their dwellings. So the Lord gonna take care of us, bro. We're gonna have light in our dwellings. Okay, while everybody else is freaking out, scared, knees buckling, okay? Tripping, okay? The Lord gonna take care of us. And that's why we do what we do. This is why we have the spirit to, you know, do these lessons and these shows and, you know, make this our, you know, main priority. You know, when niggas thinking about Christmas, we thinking about how can we serve YAHAWASHI, YAHAWASHI. And when all hell breaks loose, this is going to pay off. Yeah, maybe right now we might not be the most financially set, you know. We ain't got the shits going like these everyday Babylonians. But, you know, as they say, laugh now, cry later. You know, and we're crying out now, we're going to be laughing later. And everybody else, they're laughing now, but they're going to be crying later. Okay? Just grab that too, man. All right. Because when things get bad out here, the Lord gonna put the spirit on us to rejoice. It says, Job chapter 5 and verse 17. It says, "Behold, happy is the man whom the Most High correcteth."
No one word can.
Happy is the man whom the Most High correcteth. Let me turn this shit off, Salakia.
Investigation. PG&E saying the damage from the fire is extensive. Work. The fire department says at least some of the outages were because of a fire that broke.
So it says, "Behold, happy is the man whom the Most High correcteth. Therefore despise not thou the chastening of the Almighty." And happy are we that have received the correction of YAHAWASHI, YAHAWASHI, that are in our right minds and serving the Lord in truth and sincerity, because that's going to be a blessing unto us versus the ones who have not received this correction. It says, "For he maketh sore and bindeth up, he woundeth, and his hands make whole. He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee." So we coming into these troubles, these plagues, and the Lord going to deliver us from these troubles and these plagues, and no evil shall touch you. Okay, or anybody with you, your children, you know, you're a woman. This is why, like I said, Isaiah 4:1, 7 women shall take hold of one man. A man shall be a hiding place from the wind, which is that destruction that's coming. And that's not any man. That's the Israelite man, the elect men that's been fervently serving YAHAWASHI, YAHAWASHI. Okay, the Lord gonna be with us, man. Okay, and this is why He has put the Spirit on us to do this so fervently, you know. Because when that time comes, you gonna need the Lord, and you gonna be, the Lord gonna remind you all the times you could have did more for Him. It says, "In famine he shall be redeemed from death," meaning when everybody else is starving, you gonna be eating. "And in war from the power of the sword," when people get their heads blown off, you gonna be safe. Okay. "Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt thou be afraid of the destruction when it cometh. At destruction and famine thou shalt laugh, neither shalt thou be afraid of the beasts of the earth." So at destruction and famine, when destruction and famine come, the men of the Lord are going to be laughing, rejoicing, fearless. Okay? "Neither shall we be afraid of the beasts of the earth." I heard people was hearing them vicious animals, those, you know, those noises. They was, you know, terrified. Imagine you just balled up in the corner for 3 days. Pants just full of crap. You ain't been do nothing but peeing shit on yourself the whole time. Crying. You can't stop crying. Snotty nose. Terrified. The Lord is about to show you people that he ain't no joke. All right? But obviously before that happens, what he's going to do, he's going to have his prophets go out here and warn you. This is why the Lord put the Spirit in us to come out here and say these things and do these shows to give you the warnings. These warnings are coming from the heavens. It's coming from YAHAWASHI. You know? When I came home from work, I ended up falling asleep. The Spirit had me wake up to do this lesson. You know? So, hey, this was from the heavens, man. It says, for thou shalt be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the earth shall be at peace with thee. So you're going to be in league with the stones of the field, meaning you're going to be solid, hard as a rock, when everybody else is, you know, breaking and wavering. The Lord's going to be with his men. All right? And it said, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with thee, which is, you know, these animals, but also these people are like beasts. You know, they going to know not to try it. Okay? That they going to know who to mess with. Okay, and who not to mess with. It reminds me of the movie The Book of Eli, when they were shooting at him and stuff, and the bullets was not hitting them. And what happened, they just put their guns down and was looking at the guy like, what the hell? You know? So it's going to be very supernatural, man. All right, let's play some more of this.
Out inside this PG&E substation.
I can say that this is a contributing factor to the lights out in the area, stop lights and lights out in the businesses.
But the full cause still under investigation. PG&E saying the damage from the fire is extensive and that the repairs and safe restoration will be complex, but not yet explaining how they believe this happened. A blackout dimming Christmas cheer in the Golden City.
Liz is joining us now from California. And Liz, so many questions about how to make sure something like this, something this dramatic, doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of questions tonight, and people just want to know, when are they going to get power back? We know most of the power has been restored, but there are still entire neighborhoods and thousands of people that do not have electricity. PG&E says they are actively working on this, and they expect to have all power restored by midday Monday. Hallie.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC.
I think I got one more. Let's go right here. Yeah, right here. We got Jake.
Cut! Bring on the double. After my hospital stay, act like help.
Thousands of people remain.
That's ridiculous. Let me grab this too. It says, this is the book of Joel, chapter 2 and verse 2. It says, a day of darkness and of gloominess, which is, this is ultimately going into that day of thermonuclear destruction. Okay, but this is leading up into that, right? It says a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness. As the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong, there hath not been ever the like, neither shall there be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. This going into those missiles, those nukes. So they're showing you that this darkness is inevitable, bro. Okay? Up until the very end, it's going to be darkness, man. All right? And that's why we tell you to repent, seek YAHAWASHI, okay? Because the time we're coming into, man, you ain't going to be able to shrug this off. You ain't going to be able to act like everything is going to be okay. All right, let's
Without power across the San Francisco area tonight. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at 10. I'm Catherine Heenan. PG&E is telling Crown 4 they're working around the clock. They've set up charging stations in a number of neighborhoods. Crown 4's Lindsay Ford is here in the studio with a look at where people can go to get help. Lindsay?
Yeah, that's right. I visited a community resource center in San Francisco's Richmond district, where PG&E has opened a charging station for residents. People can power up their devices, grab a snack, and take a moment to rest as crews continue working to restore electricity.
Saturday's massive power outage plunged more than 130,000 San Francisco residents into darkness. PG&E says the outage was...
See how I said it plunged them into darkness? You know how you see something plunge, get plunged? You get plunged into darkness. That's terrifying. Okay? Now they're going to talk about the community and how it was great that we had, You know, but that's all gonna go out the door these last days, bro. Ain't gonna be no community. It's gonna be everybody for themselves. People gonna get very, very selfish, okay? For the love of many shall wax cold, okay? And sin shall be rampant, you know, ravishing, robbing, killing, you name it. This is the book of Amos, chapter 5 and verse 18. Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord. To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord, YAHAWASHI, is darkness and not light. Okay, so it's only going to get worse in these last days. As a man did flee from a lion and a bear met him, or went into the house and leaned his hand on a wall and a serpent bit him. This is what these plagues are going to be like. It's going to be like one plague after another, one hell after another. You escape one judgment and one hell, another one is right there, you know. You escape one pestilence, you know, or plague, it's going to be another one right there, okay? They show you that in these movies. Basically, you got people that's, you know, they running for their lives and they running from something and then they run into something else, you know, even worse. Okay? Shall not the day of the Lord be darkness and not light, even very dark and no brightness in it? Okay? It says, I despise your feast days, and I will not smell in your solemn assemblies. Right? The Lord said he ain't with your feast days, man. Okay, people was out there shopping for Christmas, you know, shopping, you know, buying stuff for Christmas. The Lord ain't with that stuff, so he cut it short. Okay, and it's ironic that it's happening in San Francisco, which they say is one of the gayest cities in America. You know, I remember Dave Chappelle had a stand-up skit about that. You know, how he was in San Francisco and it was very gay out there. In the video that I played with 007, the guy was all, you know, bald head and just a fruit, you know? You can see the zesty spirit on these people, man. Okay?
Caused by an issue at a substation near 8th and Mission Streets in the South of Market neighborhood.
We are not going to stop. We have engineers and electricians working on making repairs and restoring customers. We will not stop until every customer is restored.
Sunday brought some relief with power restored to more than half of affected residents. And those still struggling with power outages, PG&E's charging stations are offering a place to power up and unwind. Richmond District's Community Resource Center is acting as a charging station.
Just good to know there's people here to help.
Guests were offered blankets, water, snacks, and access to charging ports.
Snacks, waters. It's dark, it's hard to get around, it's a little depressing. We're trying to figure out ways to keep our food like cool and everything, but you know, we're just going with the times.
Joshua Crenshaw
going with the times, you heard him? But you know, we're just going with the times. You don't want to be a nigga that's just going with the times, man. Okay? You don't want to be a nigga that's just going with the times, man. All right? And like I said, stuff like this ain't going to be you know, in the time we coming into where this thing is going to be ongoing, this ain't going to last long. Okay, the help from your community and whatnot. That ain't going to last long. Eventually, the people that are supposed to be helping you is going to be the ones trying to rob you. Okay? Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 15, see then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise. You can't just be going with the times. Okay? You're supposed to be in the spirit. You're supposed to be knowing what time we're in. It says, redeeming the time. No, don't just go with the time. Redeeming the time because the days are evil. We come to some very, very evil, which means bad times. Okay? So if you just going with the times, you're going to be going with the bad times. You're going to be in them evils. Through. Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is. And we know the will of the Lord is to bring this judgment upon this place, man. So it's inevitable. It's only going to get worse. We ain't seen nothing yet. All right, and this was just a wake-up call. That's all. Let's grab this. We're going to close out. This is, I'll finish playing this. Let me just finish this up, see what else.
Area home, but his power has yet to be restored.
We just came back from a hotel. I gotta go to work tomorrow, so we gotta wash clothes and do all this stuff. And we're not really able to do so. It's a hassle.
Amy Foster and her 11-year-old daughter, Charlotte Hassinger, also made a stop at the center. Their power was restored late Saturday night, but after what they described as a roller coaster experience.
They kept saying, oh, it's going to be on in like an hour, and then it was like, oh, 2 hours and 2 more hours, and then it was just like, we just stopped listening.
When the lights went out, they made the most of it, finding ways to pass time together.
We went to a neighbor's house, and then we heard that there was like a local restaurant that was open, and so we went and had dinner there last night.
To have like candles out.
I remember a few years ago, this was a few years ago actually, down here we had a hurricane and it knocked out all the power. Every time you have a hurricane, it knocks out the power. Yeah, you might not have power for days or whatever. And there was a particular time where this was when my brother was like first coming into the truth, you know, and this was a testimony and an example for him, because I was, you know, building him up in the spirit, and basically, you know, all the lights was out in that whole area of my neighborhood. He came over, and he was with me, but the lights was out in that whole area or whatever, right? In my neighborhood, like all my neighbors had no power, but somehow, some way, my house still had power, you know? So everybody else had no power. All around me, we still had power. It was just me and my brother in there. We was going through the scriptures and we was watching videos. We was watching movies and playing the game. I had made a big ass meal with some chicken, rice, beans, cornbread, you know, like a big ass meal, bro. We was eating, we was good. We was chilling. But everybody else had no power. And then when I went out and drove around, I seen people, because you had like a pizza shop. I think it was Papa John's that was open, but it was literally a line all the way down the street of people just sitting in line because they had no power, they had no food, and they didn't want to. I guess they got tired of eating out of cans. You know, you got to open a can, you know, with a damn pocket knife, because the can opener is not working because it's, you know, powered, you know, by electricity. But basically, that was a testimony unto us, man, that when all hell breaks loose, the Lord gonna take care of us, bro. But everybody else, they weren't doing so good, you know? You had people that was literally, you know, catching hell. This is for days. But the whole time we had power. The whole time we had power, man, all right? We was just chilling, watching movies, watching videos, reading the scriptures, playing a game. We was doing anything you could do on a normal day when everybody else was doing everything that they, you know, they couldn't do nothing. They were just stuck, you know, and they was through. All right. So it says 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 31, it says, and they that use this world that's not abusing it, for the fashion of this world passeth away. So yeah, this world as we know it, the fashion of this world is going to pass away, man. All right. It ain't going to be a time of, you know, hip hooray, and then, you know, a good time in this times we're coming into, bro. People are gonna be in a bad case, okay? And the fashion of this world, as we know, is gonna pass away. In the NLT, it says those who use the things of this world should not become attached to them. So you can't get too attached to these things, okay? You can't get too caught up in the ways of this life. It says, for this world as we know it will soon pass away. Which we read earlier, the end, we're going to see the end of your world. The world as we know it is changing, and it's going to change drastically, okay? And that's what people are going to start getting at, and they're going to start having that eureka moment. You know, they're going to have an epiphany and say, oh, that's what those men was talking about. Yeah, that's what we was talking about, okay? And we see it because the prophets are visionaries. So we can see it now clear as day. But a lot of people, you're going to have to see it to believe it. And by that time, it's going to be too late, man. By that time, it's going to be too late.
Oh, we played a game of chess.
PG&E spokesperson Melissa Sabotin says the goal is to take some of the stress off customers during the outage.
We recognize how difficult it can be to be without power, particularly at this time of year, during the holiday season. And we're working to restore customers as soon as we possibly can.
Amy and Charlotte say the charging stations PG&E set up have added a bit of light to an otherwise dark situation.
I think it's really great. We live next door to the Richmond Rec Center, and to see that they're creating like a space for people to come.
You know, as my mom said, like they're creating a resource for people, and I think that's really important in a community.
That's really important in a community. You see? That community talk, bro. Community. But pretty soon your community is gonna be the worst place for you. Your community gonna be the worst, the worst, man. Okay, because you have a lot of people that's gonna be, you know, everyday citizens is gonna turn to complete criminals, madmen, okay, monsters in your community. All right, let me close out with this right here. Let's close out with this right here, man. What's that? 2nd Ezra chapter 9 and verse 1, it says, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself. Like the nigga said, we just going with the times. Bro, you're supposed to be measuring these times. It says, and when thou seest part of the signs pass, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. For like all that is made in the world hath the beginning and the end is manifest. So the end of America is being manifested right before our eyes. We're seeing it play out. And you know how you know, before the lights go out, they start to flicker. I guess this is just the flickering on a large scale before the lights ultimately just go out altogether, man. All right, and all of America is plunged into darkness. Okay. It says, even so, the times also the highest have plain beginnings and wonder and powerful works and endings and effects and signs. If you're not paying attention to the effects and the signs, you're going to be taken off guard. It says, and everyone that shall be saved and shall be able to escape by his works and by faith whereby ye have believed, shall be preserved from the said perils, and shall see my salvation in my land and within my borders, for I have sanctified them for me from the beginning. So you got particular people that's going to be saved from this destruction that's coming, that's going to be protected in these last days, while the majority is going to be left out there. It says, then shall they be in pitiful case, which now have abused my ways, and they that have cast them away despitefully shall dwell in torment. They're going to be in a pitiful case, bro. Okay? Yeah, they came together with the power banks and whatnot. They got the generators out there, but that ain't going to last long. Okay? What happens when all the gasoline run out for those generators? That's it. It says, then shall they be in a pitiful case, which now have abused my ways, and they that have cast them away despitefully shall dwell in torments. And that's another thing. People going to be tormented, bro. It ain't going to be no just, oh, it's just another day. No, you're going to be tormented. You see people in the video, it was smiling and, you know, trying to, keep up a good spirit. That's going to be over with, bro. People going to be bugging out. And the Lord going to put that spirit on them to bug out. He going to put that spirit of fear on them. It says, for such as in their life have received benefits and have not known me, and they that have loathed my law while they had yet liberty, and when as yet place of repentance was open unto them, understood not, but despised it. You despise this repentance. You despised hearing this word. You know? It says, the same must know it after death by pain. You see? So you people going to come to understand what we've come to understand, but only after death by pain, gruesome deaths. Okay? It says, and therefore be thou not curious how the ungodly shall be punished and when, but inquire how the righteous shall be saved, whose the world is and for whom the world is created. We're not concerned with how you niggas going to catch your judgments. We don't care about that, honestly. You know, we're not going to stick around for the I told you so. All we're concerned with is how the righteous is going to be saved, how the Lord is going to deliver his elect. When everybody else is dying and, you know, catching hell, the Lord's going to deliver his elect. He's going to have mercy upon his elect. Okay? But that's the point. I ain't going to make this too long, man. I pray this lesson was edifying to the elect. It's already been long enough. All right, but that's the spirit, you know. I wanted to make it shorter, but the spirit, you know, the spirit get it rolling, and we get to going. All right, Lord, when it was edifying to those select, double honors to our teachers, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who taught us his truth and sincerity, peace and salutations to those select scattered abroad. Shalom to 144,000, man. All right, continue to believe, continue to stay prayed up, continue to stay on your watchtowers, watching for these prophecies, because it's this thing gonna speed up, bro. It's like a domino effect, you know. One domino fall, they all begin to fall simultaneously. That's the times we in. So don't get caught up in you know, the smoke and mirrors. Pay attention. You know, always keep your head on the swivel. They're talking about we coming into a time of great T attacks, and I might go into that tomorrow. How they're, you know, shutting down these Christmas events and they're canceling New Year's celebrations. Okay, because you're gonna be hearing fireworks, and it ain't gonna be fireworks. It's gonna be bombs actually going off. People getting blown up. Okay, these T attacks are about to kick up. It's about to be people about to be, you know, crippled by fear in these last days. And this is why we tell you to repent, seek Yahawah, Yahawah, He may be found, because the time is short. All right, the time is short. It's only a matter of time before the Lord really up the ante in His place, and it's gonna get very, very bad, man. So Lord, when this edifying to those elect, double honors to our teachers, the elders, and apostles of Great Millstone. Shalom, shalom, shalom.